Okay. Good morning. It's nice to see a full house here today. I will call the Wright County Board meeting to order here on May 17th, and we begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. So all rise, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the minutes of May 10th, 2016.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the minutes.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Today's agenda. Anybody have any additions or amendments to the agenda?
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
No, second it.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Delyden. Any further discussion on the agenda? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. The consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda you'd wish to remove for further discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Delyden, second by Commissioner Burrell.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Note there's a couple meetings on there you'll want to put in your calendar, the committee of the whole for sure. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. 9:05 a.m. Sheriff Hagerty, good morning. Looks like you got some special guests today.
We have a lot of special guests. Good morning, Chair, Board. This week is National Police Week. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy declared a week to honor those fallen officers who sacrificed their lives in the line of duty. Fortunately, in Wright County, it's been quite some time since that occurred, and we work hard at it every day, making sure that doesn't happen here. Today, we'll be honoring quite a few of the members of our office, and as important or more, some of the citizens that have really gone over and above to help us do our jobs. We know in law enforcement, especially in Wright County, with 140 cops, that's about 280 ears and eyes for a population of 130, not near enough. So we need partnerships, and we do enjoy that in Wright County, and it's not that way all across the U.S. All you have to do is open up a newspaper and you see where various groups are at odds with the cops, basically. So what we have here in Wright County is something we cherish, we enjoy, and as a result, we have ceremonies like this. And I believe Commissioner Hewsome has a declaration to read. And then when she's finished, I'll bring Sergeant Ferguson up, who handles our awards committee, to vet these and find out who's worthy of them. So we'll continue on.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Sheriff.
Hewsome.
Thank you.
Yes. The resolution proclaiming May 15th through the 21st, 2016 as Law Enforcement Officers Week in Wright County. Whereas the law enforcement officers of Wright County have worked devotedly and selflessly on behalf of the people of this county and the state of Minnesota, regardless of the peril or hazard to themselves, and whereas these officers have safeguarded the lives and property of their fellow citizens, and whereas by the enforcement of our laws, these same officers have given our county internal freedom from fear of violence and civil disorder, and whereas 7 Wright County law enforcement officers, including Constable Charles Albert Washburn, Sheriff John C. Nugent Jr., Marshal Rudolph Mauer, Sheriff Paul Kritzik, Sheriff James Kreitlow, Chief George Riddy, and Sheriff Roger Robo have given the ultimate sacrifice and lost their lives in the line of duty, and whereas these men and women of law enforcement, by their patriotic service and their dedicated efforts, have earned the gratitude of our community. Get a little choked up. Therefore, be it resolved that the Wright County Board of Commissioners formally declares this week as Law Enforcement Officers Week in Wright County and publicly salutes the service of our law enforcement officers in our community and the communities across the nation.
Thank you, Chris.
Great.
Sergeant Ferguson,
She's right there.
good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. First award is a citizen letter of recognition. The recipient couldn't be with us today. I'd like to read it anyhow. The person was nominated by Deputy Brent Roush. His name is William Meering. On April 22nd, 2015, at 12:41 a.m., Deputy Roush responded to the report of a house fire in Chatham Township. Upon arrival, he was met by William Meering, who was driving by and noticed the east side of a deck on fire at the residence. William stopped at the residence and proceeded to pound on the front door until he was able to wake the homeowner. Maple Lake, Buffalo, and Annandale fire departments responded to the residence and were able to get the rapidly spreading fire out. Although the house was severely damaged and uninhabitable, the family of 6 were able to evacuate unharmed due to William's attentiveness and quick thinking. The Sheriff's Office awards the Citizen Letter of Recognition to William Meering. Next 2 recipients are also citizen awards, nominated by Deputy Terry Streggy. On November 27, 2015, deputies were dispatched to a capsized boat on Pelican Lake in Buffalo Township. Upon arrival, deputies observed a duck boat heading in from the main lake to the boat access. The boat had 5 occupants. 3 were duck hunters experiencing extreme hypothermia and exhaustion, along with Thomas McCabe and Matthew Furlong. Thomas and Matthew stated they were on their way to the boat launch when they noticed decoys floating loose in the lake. They spotted a capsized boat with 2 hunters clinging to the boat, and the third was using goose decoys to stay afloat. Thomas and Matthew drove their boat over to attempt to rescue the duck hunters who were having problems functioning and moving due to the frigid temperature of the water. They balanced their boat and used the half-floating boat to assist the hunters in and bring them to shore. Not only did Thomas and Matthew take risk by going out to save the hunters, they responded back out to the main lake to round up the hunters' gear as well as the boat, and they towed it in. Wright County Sheriff's Office awards the Citizen Commendation to Thomas McCabe and Matthew Furlong. Okay. Next are our Sheriff's Office employees, deputies, and communications officers. They were nominated for this award by Sergeant Eric Kunkel and Communications Officer Heather Pomeroy. On May 9th, 2015, these communications officers handled a call for service from inside the home of a male shooting victim. Communications officers stayed on the line after losing contact with the victim in an attempt to gather as much information to assist the victim and responding deputies. The above deputies arrived on scene and took immediate action by entering the residence in an attempt to save the shooting victims and confront the suspect, believed to still be on scene. While the incident had a tragic end, the above employees handled themselves with professionalism and bravery in a high-stress situation, placing themselves directly in harm's way in an attempt to save the victims. Wright County Sheriff's Office awards commendations to the following employees. Deputy R. Lance Sauls. Deputy Adam Fournier. Deputy Adam Lund. Deputy Ryan Cowley. Deputy Kevin Olson. And also Deputy Glenn Garrett's, who could not be with us this morning. Also receiving commendations are Communications Officers Jessica Hall, Haley Dubois, and Courtney Knoop, who could also not be with us here this morning. That's all I have, Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
Thank you, Sergeant Ferguson.
And thank you all those that have done great things for the county.
Yes,
Yeah,
very, very true.
yeah, congratulations on your accomplishments and your awards here today. Let's see here, moving down to 912. Sheriff Hagerty?
Chair, was that a resolution that we needed to vote on?
Oh, it was. It's a resolution proclaiming, thank you.
I'm not that
Motion
smart.
to-
It was Chief Deputy Brian Asleason that told me that.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution proclaiming.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Delight, second by Commissioner Houston. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote, Commissioner Burrell? Aye.
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 Aye?
Aye.
The resolution carries unanimous. I presume some folks are maybe going to want to leave the meeting now. If you want to, maybe now would be a good time, and we'll just kind of hold off for a few seconds. Or else you'll be stranded here for a while. You won't want to leave to interrupt things. You are welcome to stay if you'd like.
Hey, Sheriff? All those young little, yeah, I'm assuming you're getting them all deputized with badges?
Getting younger every day. Did they have to go through Martin McAllister also?
Cute. Thank you. Hi, how are you doing? Thank you. Thanks.
Building committee, Mike. Building committee. We're in the building committee.
You want to do it?
These means.
It looks like we're ahead of schedule, so we will move down to items for consideration A, Building Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Building Committee met on May 10th. Members present, Potter, Delighten, Kelly, others, President Wilczek and Hatfield. The first item we discussed was the annex restroom custodial closet. Wilczek provided an overview of the restroom project, and budget pricing is submitted by Kraus Anderson. Is for reference. The first bathroom, main floor in the annex is the one that needs some updating, and we don't have a full ADA compliant bathroom in the government center, so we're exploring what to do and how to accomplish this. So moving on, is the discussion. All members agreed the price seemed a little high for the scope. I believe with 259,000. Commissioner Delighten was that
Thereabouts.
Thereabouts. So we're looking at ways to, get that under control. But it's all encompassing budget. It covered every little thing because it's kind of a major reconstruction of everything in there. And so we're discussing with the identifying the next steps in the process and a bid-specific drawing completed by HCM to solicit bids for some hard numbers, because at 259 we're not very comfortable with that number. We were hoping to be a lot less than that, but we're still going to be exploring that. So that one's just for further discussion, is going to keep on going until we get some hard numbers back. And the recommendation now that was moving forward, obtain prices and develop a bid document for the project with the intent to bid project for future consideration. The second item was elevator repairs. Coordinator Kelly presented a proposal for Minnesota Elevator Incorporated MEI to repair, update the courts elevator, which is located just over here. It's a vintage 1958-59 model. It's a oldest one in here. And the proposal identified a couple items citing code requirements, but through discussion, some items didn't seem to code related, and they were more, it wasn't supporting documents from the inspector requiring the work. We're confused on what it is that was out of code, what had to be done, and what just would be nice to get done, because we've had maintenance repairs on that over the past few years, ongoing, to bring up some of the issues that the state had with our elevator. The recommendation is denied and recommend holding off on the work until further details could be discussed, and asked if another vendor take a look at the scope for pricing and requirements. Wilczek will be discussing the referenced elevator discussion with MEI and connecting with another vendor to look at that process, just to make sure we're looking at the correct things and not just spending money on frivolously, and make sure we get the correct recommendation going forward. Supporting documents in here for the bathroom remodel, like I said, was at $259,238, which that didn't include engineering fees. That was kind of high, so we're going to keep going forward with that. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll move the minutes and the recommendation, or there is really no, it's ongoing discussion.
I'll second it with the correction that the very last line, connecting with another vendor to look at the cab, assuming it's to look at the elevator.
Yeah. There was an acronym for cab, it's control something or other. There was some acronym to it.
Maybe it should be
That's
CAB
the
in capital.
language they use for the actual car vehicle that goes up and down with an
Car,
elevator,
cab.
so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it's a cab because it takes you from point A
That
to
was
point B.
called
then.
Guess I don't remember that
Brand
term.
name, yeah.
Just confused me, that's all.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Delyden, so the minutes will stay as they are. Do you want to change that to
Well,
elevator?
I'd like to get it clarified a little
Or
bit
elevator
better.
cab, maybe put the word elevator
Yeah,
before
elevator.
cab.
Okay, that
That sounds good. Just makes it a little more clear.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Houston, personnel, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the Personnel Committee met on May 10th, 2016. Members present, Hewson, Sawatsky, Kelly. Others present, Hess and Rasmussen. And the discussion was hiring of additional property appraiser. And the local assessor contracted by Marysville Township has submitted notice of retirement. Marysville Township is considering whether it will hire externally or request appraisal services from Wright County. There's concerns that additional townships also may be requesting appraisal services from our county in the future. So the recommendation is the assessor's office will gather more information from townships regarding Wright County appraisal services and the possible need to hire an additional FTE. So this is also ongoing, and with that, Mr. Chair, will move the minutes and the recommendation.
I'll second it.
Motion by Houston, second by Delight. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, item 2, was that just delayed or?
No, that's for Health and Human Service Board.
Okay, so that went referred to, because it's on the minutes
Yeah,
of this. but
Right,
it's-
it's to show that we had.
We acted on it,
discussion.
but.
We acted on it, but we'll get the minutes on
Okay,
Monday.
thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Houston, the Ways and Means Committee, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the Ways and Means Committee met on May 10th, 2016. President Hewson Sawatsky, Lee Kelly, and Tony Rasmussen. And the discussion was the assessment contract rates. And County Assessor Tony Rasmussen distributed the following, and we have that in our packet also, the list of the assessment contract rates charged by area counties, and then a letter dated 12/114 from former County Assessor Greg Cramber to cities and townships in the county regarding the 2016 and the 2017 assessment services agreement, and a copy of the 2016 and 2017 assessment agreement, services agreement. Sawatsky confirmed that the county is currently charging $10.50 per parcel and $25 under the new construction, which is less than 500,000 rate. Rasmussen said the number under the 500,000, new construction greater than 500,000 should be 100 and not 50 as listed in the handout, so that was a correction. And Rasmussen said that Wright County has 61,000 parcels. Of that, over 42,000 incur a parcel fee. He said that the county charged $10.50 per parcel for more than 5 years, and Newsom said it cost the county more to assess parcels than the revenue received, and thought the fee should be raised incrementally. Sawatsky suggested increasing the per parcel fee by $1 to $11.50 in 2018, and then $12 in 2019. Rasmussen said past practice has been to bill per taxable parcel versus per parcel, and the new contract will just say per parcel. Rasmussen said he notified cities and townships in a recent letter that all parcels will be charged in the future based on the verbiage in the new contract. There are 6,000 exempt parcels in Wright County. Rasmussen said the cities and townships are required to notify the county about terminating the current contract at least 60 days prior to the 6/30/17 agreement expiration date, and will ask Chief Deputy County Attorney Brian Asleson to review the new contract. So the committee suggested increasing the fee for new construction less than $500,000 from $25 to $50, and the charge for new construction value greater than $500,000 from $100 to $150. So the recommendation is authorize the following increases in the 2018-2019 assessment contract rate agreement. The increase per parcel charge from $10.50 to $11.50 in 2018 and to $12 in 2019 for all parcels. And increase the charge for new construction valued at less than $500,000 from $25 per parcel to $50 per parcel, and to increase the charge for new construction valued at more than $500,000 from $100 to $150 per parcel. With that, Mr. Chair, I will move the minutes and the recommendation with the addition of putting in, I read it, now I lost it, current contract in the 4th paragraph, first line.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Potter. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I did, just a question. What is that last column? It says True County.
Pardon?
It says True County.
That means there are absolutely no local assessors, and it's 100% done by the county.
So if it says.
So like in Benton County, they have no local assessors. Every single property in the entire county is done by the county.
Okay.
But where you see the words,
True.
or wait,
Yep.
excuse me, in Benton County, it's not True County, so they do have local assessors. Where you see the words yes,
Chisago.
like Chisago doesn't even charge anybody. They're like, so they just do it all from the county, and there's no local assessors. So you'll see that there's, and Isani does that, and Sherburne does that also. So 3 of the counties have no local assessors. Where it says no, it means it's not all done by the county, and there's also a mixture of county and local assessors.
Okay, and I know at budget, this conversation came up, and I'm thinking that if they had it a little higher, it would encourage more private industry. But then I was surprised with the study that the other surrounding counties, how little to nothing that they charge, and now I'm kind of
Well, you're right.
thinking this, I mean, like, I don't,
And that's why we're increasing it, but not
Right.
outrageously.
But still, we're still not taking in as much money as we're spending, so.
Exactly, and if you look, now, like Tony said that he doesn't think there's been a change for 5 years, for example, and there probably should have been some small ones, but by what we're changing, we're still gonna be, I think it puts us higher than some of these that are freakishly low. But if you take those out of the mix, it gets us a lot closer to some things. We're still lower than a few of the counties, probably higher than most on the survey, but lower than a few. And definitely what we'd be charging would be less than what our cost is. Or, excuse me, yeah, what we'd be charging would be less than our cost,
Still about, probably less than half of what our cost is.
potentially. And we wanted to start raising it, but not too drastically after we've seen these other numbers.
it just kind of makes me step back a little bit when I see some of the neighboring counties, like I said, 3, 4 of them that don't even charge anything. I'm like, what what's their logic with that, you know?
Because it is the statutory responsibilities of the cities and townships. But as you can see, for those that don't have this document in front of them, in Carver, they're 12, 1250, and 1350, depending on the type of property. Stearns is improved taxable is 1250, and most parcels are improved, I'm guessing. And anything with any sort of a building is gonna be improved, so we're below Stearns. But there's a mixture. Then you got somebody like Pine, if it's commercial improved, they charge 25. An average parcel, they charge 638, whereas we're kind of, you know, it's kind of all over the board.
Sure, but
Meeker's 13 for a city and 950 for a township, and yet our assessors will tell us that there's every bit as much work involved with doing a township parcel as there is a city parcel, sometimes more, because especially with the change of the classification in farmland, where you've got productive farmland and you've got the non-productive that they kind of failed with here a few years ago. So. Was the discussion in here at all about the non-taxable ones? I didn't see that. Did that show up, Chris, in the minutes?
Just that, yeah, there's 6,000
Okay.
non,
Okay,
yeah,
6,000 exempt.
yeah,
exempt.
okay, and that's gotta be, yeah, there's exempt parcels out there, and our assessors have to assess them. And the contract would suggest we would would charge them for those assessments like any, but for some reason, in recent years, they haven't been charged for them, and we want to correct that, because it's the same amount of work that goes along with them as a regular parcel, so. So that's, the goal of the committee and Tony was to kind of correct that in the future as well.
So even though those parcels don't pay any taxes, and the townships and cities still have to get a valuation?
They still have to be valued by state statute, and it takes time to do that, and, we believe that in all the, that in the, other counties that they are, well, look, for example, at Stearns. They've got, exempt properties, and they charge for them just at a slightly lower rate, but they, you know what I mean? A lot of the other ones don't mention them, but it's Tony's belief that they're paying for them. And like I say, if you read the contract would suggest that they would be charged for them, so. And it takes the same amount of work, but. So, for those that are watching, like I say, these rates haven't increased. Tony didn't think for 5 years, I think it was, Chris?
Yeah, that's what he
Is
said.
this something that we should maybe bring, you know, delay it a little bit to meet with the townships and get their input on it too, or
Well,
have the township officers?
first off, this doesn't go into effect till 2018-19.
Right,
And I guess my thought would be if the town, you know, if they're more, that gives them more than enough time to shop around if they want to. And as we talked about here, I mean, I don't think anybody on this board has a problem with townships or cities having local assessors if it works
Right.
out for them. And if that's a more efficient way of doing it, we think it's great. You know? So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Okay, Bob Hevala. Good morning, Bob.
Hey, good morning, Board. The only item I have is a professional services contract with C-Change. C-Change is our vendor who works with us on setting up the ballot-style layouts, ordering our election supplies. So this is a professional services contract. We've signed these in the past, so I'm asking permission for me to sign this professional services contract with C-Change.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Potter.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Delayden. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
One just quick question. Is this much of a change from last year or 2 years ago?
I don't believe it was Commissioner Delayden. You know, I apologize, I don't have that with me, but
I'm just curious.
it wasn't the scuttlebutt I was hearing, so.
Bob, here's your signed claims here. 9:30 a.m. Miss Gabrielle, CGW Law Office. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. If you recall, I'm Kathy Gabriel. I'm the attorney that represents parents in child protection matters. And I think you are all the same for the last couple of years here, so I probably won't get into the whole history of how we got here. Everyone's always interested to talk about that, but I think we
Don't bring up bitter memories.
I know. So, but I'm here, I've been here for 8 years now, representing parents in the child protection cases. Every year I try to come back and let you know about the year past, just about what I'm doing. Parents I represented kind of in the raw numbers, the hours. So I sent him just kind of a little memo here, just kind of outlining a couple things. Again, the numbers that I've been, cases I've been assigned to, or amount of parents I've been assigned to. I only get appointed to the parents. Some cases we have like a grandparent or something that's entitled to court-appointed attorney. And that would be not including this contract. So whenever these cases open, I'm the first attorney that the judges appoint, and then if we need subsequent attorneys, we have a list. Although small, we do have a list, and it's been working. And other things, I always kind of just let you guys know kind of the numbers and kind of stuff. It also covers the appeals of those cases. We're still low on having trials, which I think is a good thing for my clients. That number is a 4 for 2015, and I have a -2, and what that means is we've either resolved that case. Well, one case was when the trial was done. We came up with a resolution. The other time it was resolved right before we went into the courtroom. And the reason I put that stuff down, because it does take a lot of time and time that goes into these numbers to prepare for these child protection matters, because usually we have about a year of materials, documents to prepare for a trial because of our how long generally a case would be open. Generally 6 months, but seeing that those are generally open about a year. We had 3 appeals that came out, I believe, of the county. I was not the filing party, so that means there was another attorney on that appealed something that either I did or the county did, or, well, I should say probably the judge did. But, so we did have those. I always put down 2, conflict. Situations come up where I can't be appointed, and after 8 years, I'm starting to see some similar people or sisters of my clients, and then those create conflicts. And so I had to decline on 3 cases where then they went to the other attorney on the list. The other thing I put down too is we've had discussions about EPC hearings. Those are the Emergency Protective Care hearing, just to refresh your memory. Those are when children get removed from their home within 72 hours. We have to be in court in front of a judge to address the situation and the removal. I go to those. I think those are a huge benefit to my clients because that's the first opportunity they're in court. And I believe I put my last sentence there. In 2014, there was 23, but that's in 2015, as this memo is 2015. We had 23 of those. I appear on those until I get appointed or don't get appointed. Nonetheless, I think it's a good thing, and it really helps the process. So we had those. So 2015. Last time I was here, I was talking to you guys about how the governors, the task force, things are changing. We're going to see a hike in numbers. 2015 wasn't that bad. My hours, if I recall, I kind of do this on about a 20-hour-a-week basis. It was on average about 22 hours a week. So there's an increase, and that was the good news for 2015. However, 2016 is completely different. I'm almost at how many cases I got from 2015, and EPC hearings are just about the same as well. So, as you guys probably know, we had five new social workers, and then you authorized 6, and so a 6th will be starting soon, and it's all affecting us in the courts, and we're getting all that work. But nonetheless, it's still working great. This is my priority. I think you guys know I work in a couple other counties, but I've made Wright County my priority and still want to continue. I did get put on hopefully your Ways and Means Committee meeting next week to discuss this because it needs to be discussed. So other than that, so that's why I'm here. I'm sorry it's not until May, but it's been a very busy year up in the courts and my caseload. And so that's just why I got put on the agenda, just to kind of update you. Like I said, 2015 was a pretty good year. No big changes or any big problems to report.
Thank you. Charlie?
Kathy?
Kathleen, am I off on this? But I mean, I'm seeing more of this where we're removing parental rights like permanently. And some of, like, let's say the parents have a drug problem or whatever. And I can see that we got to keep the kids safe, but going to foster care, even if it's long-term foster care, it just concerns me when we're taking the kids away from the parents permanently and revoking their parental rights. And I'm just wondering if you had any input on that.
Well, I have a lot of input. That's what I do. I represent the parents that don't want that to happen. But you're right, there's some situations with drug use or neglect or abuse that we're going, that's what's the reality is, those things are happening. But what happens in our process is it's good because we identify a situation, say drug use. We identify it, and then social services, your social workers, guardian ad litem get appointed. Their job is to identify a situation and then fix it. And that's my job too, is to help my client through the legal process. And my view on these court hearings is that we all work together to fix the situation. The judge is overseeing it. We're coming back to court having court, review hearings. The statute says every 90 days. Our judges and other judges are having them in sooner. I just had one case that had 4 hearings in 27 days because the judge wants to know what's going on, are you in treatment, really holding hands all the way. So if we're getting to that point, Commissioner, it's because somebody failed. And only 2 people can, under the statute, really can fail. One, my client could fail. That drug abuse could be too excessive, that we're not going to be able to meet the timelines. And remember, we have timelines in this matter. 6 months is the only amount of time that the legislature says that child can be in that foster care. Because if you get to that point, it's starting to do some really mental damage to that child to know, where am I going to be tomorrow? Who's going to feed me? Who's going to take care of me? So, or social services didn't do their part. And that's my job, is to make sure that my client gets every opportunity. And ultimately, I think that child gets every opportunity to fix the situation. So nobody wants that. The judges don't want that. Social services, that's not their goal either. Constitutional protection, you can raise your child. It's presumed your child is best off with the natural parent. But unfortunately, we've come to the conclusion sometimes that doesn't happen. But, and that's why I think it's been working so well for me personally, is because I really like the county attorney's office, the attorneys there. I'm getting information. I believe they're having the same goal I have. Now, when we come to trials, that's obviously when we have a difference of opinion. But we don't have that many here in Wright County. There's a lot around the state. These are cases because really, what do I have to lose? If you're going to move to terminate my client's parental rights, it's next to the worst kind of a death sentence you could give them. So, so we're having them, and I agree, that's very harsh, but judges here don't take that too lightly. They don't do those unless there's some really serious situations that occur.
I just know this is at a human services meeting, but we are kept being told we do everything we can to keep the parents and children together. And this was a constituent of mine that I actually went in the courtroom and I sat in there and just didn't make a peep in the back of the, whatever. But the attorney, and it may have been you, asked for, and it was 30 days before the final hearing, and they asked for either 60 or 90 days. And the judge turned to the social worker and says, no, I think we've dealt with this long enough. And I'm like, why? And this was a person that really was trying to get off of drugs. She's been through treatment. She's quit on her own for, a couple, 3 months at a time. She's just struggling. And I just can't see it. I don't know. And now that's a state law that we can't go on foster care for more than 6 months, though.
The state law. I mean, there's some grounds for an extension up to another 6 months. Yeah. But really, those are the timelines that we're working with. Because
I know people that, not drugs so much, but with alcohol, where they've gone into treatment, they've relapsed again, they've gone back to treatment. I mean, and it's taken years for them to, and then eventually that, I guess, the ones I know were able to quit it, but some of them, it took years to do that, and now we're taking kids away from the parents, and I just think it's a bad thing, and it's a state law that we're dealing with, so maybe I have to talk to the legislators that way, so.
You had 44 cases in 2015. How many children were removed from their parents in 2015?
I would venture to say, without looking at all my cases, I venture to say about 80% of those would be, because usually what they get involved is when the children are removed. I have very few that just start off as chips. They happen, so, but it's mostly children are removed.
And how many of that 80% do the parents in the end indicate to you that, you know what, I recognize that I'm not capable and I accept this and it's best for my kids?
Well, quite a few, I think. And again, this is kind of unique for this county, and let me tell you why, is because they felt that they did get that fair shake. They felt like I was advocating for them to get that service, and we gave them every opportunity. At least that's what I'm hoping my clients are feeling, and that's what I'm hearing. So we're not litigating as much.
So following up then, being the advocate for these parents, and being more involved in the system than anybody representing these parents, obviously, would you say the system works in Wright County?
It does, absolutely it does. And I want to tell you too, just last week, I mean, I get calls to go down to St. Paul. I've gone down to St. Paul with Carrie Willis. They're asking, what are you doing there? How we have laid out these EPC hearings, having people ready within the hours, getting people involved, it's working. We went down and we taught classes in continuing legal education. We just taught one for the judges, law clerks a couple weeks ago. It's working here, and they laugh sometimes when we tell them how it's, who's doing what. Oh, we'll never be able to get an attorney to do that, or we'll never be able to get the, and so it's working here. And as you guys know, I'm really proud of this system here. And so that's the gem. It's working, absolutely.
So in Wright County, you being the person that represents these parents, you believe that those that lose their parental rights do so deservingly?
I don't know if I would say that. I mean, I have trials, and I support my clients 100%. But I see it too that they go through the process. There's an appellate process, and if it's appropriate, I'm filing appeals if they want me to appeal. But I can tell you that if any of my clients, I've been with them within hours of when their children were removed, and I'm working that process with them. I'm asking for services if they're not being offered. I'm having review hearings with them. I'm in touch with their professionals, such as counselors, and so I feel I'm doing my job, and so I feel good about this process here.
Well, it would seem like if judges are having folks come in 4 times in 27 days,
Yeah.
they're spending the time with it and taking great care and caution.
Our judges here are just unbelievable. I think a lot of them have like the child protection background. A lot of them don't have that in other counties. I think a lot of judges do not like these cases. These are, I stand by it every time, the hardest cases in our in our juvenile justice system. This is very tough stuff, and it's tough decisions they have to make. And the rules seem to change every 2 years, and so the judges are constantly updating. But it's so nice because the judges here, number one, they care, which is the biggest thing, and number two, they know the laws. They will hold social services accountable. They'll hold my clients accountable. Everyone will get, I think, a fair shot in the cases that I'm involved in. I haven't had any big problems where I'm seeking out any other additional resources.
Really?
So let's say on this particular case that and I won't mention any names or anything or where it was, but so let's say this person it's a constituent of mine did not want to give up her kids, but I went at the trial and she had admitted to the judge that at this time she's not capable of doing it. She knows she has an addiction and she's struggling with. So, but I never went to the final thing. I'm assuming that her kids were taken away from her permanently. So now let's say 3 years down the road, let's say a year from now, she does get sober and she's clean for 2 years and she's turned her life around. Is there any way for her to come back and petition to get her kids back?
There is a way, but I've had one client that has done it, because when you're talking about a termination of parental rights, you're
Right.
talking about a permanent they sever any legal ties. You don't have what we call legal standing to come back to court to ask that. You can't come and even ask the court. But what happens is, and that situation I've talked about, she did clean the situation, and then more importantly, had a relationship with the child because I think the child was adopted by a family member.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I think that family member passed on, I think it was a grandmother, and she was able to reinstore her parental rights that one time. We have other options as far as terminations. We don't terminate unless it's absolutely in the child's best interest and there's a statute ground. There's other things. They could transfer custody to a relative, and that still gives you legal standing to come back because it's not severed. So you'll see those as well, as transfers of physical and legal custody. Or the third is to have them in long-term foster care, which isn't really popular because, again, it doesn't give that child that permanency that they need. So there's a lot of different options with regards to that, Commissioner, and a transfer is something that would, I guess, for lack of what you're saying, probably salvage that situation.
Okay, thank you.
Any final questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, Tom, come on up, buddy.
Yes, as always, with regard to when she comes to give her year-end review, as the county attorney, I'd like to get up and echo with regard to some of those sentiments and to educate the board with regard to where we are at reality with regard to this situation. But I think there was two ships passing there in the middle of the night. When Commissioner Swatsky, Chair, you were talking to her about how many of those get terminated in that. Those are very few. The number one goal is reunification of the family. And so when you have a chipped child in need of protective services, that's the services we get in there and we start doing what we need to do. But our primary goal is to reunify the family. And that happens a vast majority of the time. Very few people ever end up with termination of parental rights. But I am here to tell you that, a couple years ago we had that horrible case down in the cities. And if you can remember, that child protection matter got all that bad publicity. So what does your legislators do? They get together in the next session and they have a knee-jerk reaction. And they say, you know what, we're going to throw some money at human services. So we're going to let Wright County hire 6 brand new child protection workers, but we're not going to worry about the county attorney's office, and we're not going to worry about law enforcement. St. Cloud Times just got done writing an article about the unfunded mandate. Once again, that's going to fall upon the county and upon the law enforcement to pick up the pieces, because I can tell you this. Last year, we had 55 CHIPS cases that were open in the Wright County Attorney's Office. This year, we're currently at 40. 40. We're on pace for over 90 CHIPS cases this year. And we currently have 9 more that are yet to be open in our office. And so I'm here just telling you the world's kind of changed, but you know what? When a kid doesn't get a fair shake, these are some of the most important, if not the most important cases that come through a county attorney's office, because you're dealing with a kid that hasn't been given a fair shake, and we want to go in there and try to do what's necessary in order to give that kid a fair shake. And that's why I like Kathleen Gabriel, and that's why I think this board made a very wise decision. You guys decided a long time ago when she first started to go on a contract rather than an hourly basis. If you can remember when the Supreme Court came down and said it's our ticket, we need to pay it, remember that?
You're bringing up the bitter history now.
I know. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because at least we addressed it in the appropriate fashion by doing it a contract, because there's a lot of counties getting stuck with these hourly fees and cases. But I can just tell you, with her attitude, people skills, and work ethic, it's really nice. In a year, we had 4 hearings. She's not selling the ship. We're not selling the ship. We all have the same goal, what's in the best interest of the child, and we try to do it and bring the families back together. And I can tell you this much, John Bowen and Carrie Willis, who worked in my office on these cases, and it wasn't too long ago, I only had 1 attorney on the CHIPS matters, get along very well. We work these cases through, and it's really good. And I just wanted to give a recommendation with regard to Kathleen and how it's worked in this area of the law, which is obviously very, very, very important. But I just wanted you guys to know that sometimes I wake up in the morning, I don't have much to say with regard to what's thrown our way, just like you guys are, because I truly believe it's an unfunded mandate with regard. If you ever get a chance, they Google or YouTube, what is that story in St. Cloud? Google it. I'm a number 2 lead pencil person, all right? But bottom line, look it up and you'll kind of see with regard to some of that article what's going to happen here. And so I know she's coming up on a Ways and Means. I can just tell you these numbers aren't made up. We're on pace for over 90. She does an excellent job. and I would recommend continuing her services here on behalf of Wright County and the kids.
Hey, Tom, do you think there's any chance, I mean, my thought would, ideally, if the process worked, if Governor Dayton throwing all these tens of millions of dollars across the state to help improve this, if his idea works, shouldn't it be that these 6 new social workers in Wright County actually get to the bottom in these families of some of these problems and your numbers go down instead of up? And is it possible that
No.
we're kind of seeing a quick tip of the iceberg and then things are going to improve
No.
because there's out there working? And if not, what have we accomplished if we're not really?
Actually, what this tells you is that we missed a lot of the population to begin with, because unless these are frivolously being brought to my office, the reason you have the spike is you're throwing 6 new people out there.
They're
and
just
their
finding
job-
stuff that,
And their job is to go out there, and it's like if you have a police department of 10, I'm guessing my office would have more business generated than a police department of 2. But what Dayton and those people didn't, comprehend and put in their brain was that you're going to have this a trickle-down effect with regard to prosecution offices, law enforcement offices. There's just a lot of work, but again, how do you argue against a kid, And so there you are.
Mr. Chair, for Tom, this was that article about the 3-legged stool, and they only funded the 1 leg of it.
You got that right.
Okay.
Yep.
I can't
well,
believe
then
they would do that.
the stool will tip over then, Tom.
Unless we lean it up against the wall,
Yeah, that's right.
we can all crawl on her back.
Okay, well, thanks, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions up here?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gabrielle. And we'll see you at our Ways and Means Committee meeting. Virgil Hawkins, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Swatsky and Board of Commissioners. Today, I have
One
3
second here,
items.
please. Tony, did you come for the 2 committee minutes? I did. You can go back to your office. They are complete. Yep.
We were ahead of schedule.
I don't want you wasting any county time in here today, okay?
Thank you.
Virgil, go ahead.
Good morning. I have 3 items today for your consideration. The first is a request for acceptance of the 2015 annual report for the Highway Department that was distributed last week. And I'm here to answer any questions or comments you may have.
I'll make a motion to approve the report.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Delight and second by Commissioner Potter. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm trying to figure which page it was on. The report showed that we have only now borrowed, had 364,000. Is that, did I get that one right? Instead of, we are at 2.5 million a few years back, and now I read 364. Because I thought we were down to 500,000, but I read in here that the borrowed ahead in one of the, I should have flagged the page, that we're down to 364,000 borrowed ahead.
Yeah, this is for 2015.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's quite possible. If you let me know what page that is, I can check that out.
I found it, the number was 346, 556 on page 3-1.
That's actually probably less than we had in the 15 budget. Project must have came under budget or something like that for it to be, because it was going to be more than that in
Because it's going
15.
to be 500,000 then.
Yeah, I know it was more than that number.
Yeah. So that's looking good.
Yeah,
Thank you, report looks nice, Virgil, thank you.
yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Very nice.
Yes.
We haven't put this on the county website yet, right? But we will
No.
now, once it's approved?
After today, now that it's accepted, it'll be
Okay.
put on the website for the public to view.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries unanimous. Owners
then-
Committee meeting.
The next item is April 7th Owners Committee meeting for the new highway building. The minutes are in your packets. Just a brief summary, there's a project update done by Ken Francis of Kraus Anderson. He went over the accomplishments from the previous months, handed out a summary 4-month schedule. There were a total of 7 change orders presented, amounting to $4,069. After some discussion, the consensus was the 7 change orders in the amount of $4,069 would be approved. And the project is overall still tracking 10.5% under budget,
Great.
which amounts to about $1.7 million under budget.
Good news.
On the minutes, page 2, that bottom paragraph. Larkin said that waterproofing the concrete in the wash bay area is needed because of the standing water that will be there most of the time. If not taken care of, the concrete will crack. Franco said that the amount would be $2,000. I noted it'd be high. If you read that, you would be under the assumption that they were talking about the concrete floor, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Everybody would agree with that? That should specify the pit. Larkin said the waterproofing of the concrete pit in the wash bay area, because for that little tiny pit,
Sure, yep.
it's $2,000. If you know what, it's about a 3x6 or something like that. And I guess I thought it was kind of high for $2,000 to paint a material over a little.
Yeah, well, speaking from experience,
It's expensive?
yeah, and you don't want to cheap out on this. And my guess, it's not just a simple concrete sealer that you use on flat concrete.
Well, they talked like it was something they were gonna like paint on there literally.
Yeah, but it's a little bit more involved than that. There's some
I thought there should be like
priming and,
almost like a swimming pool, like a vermiculite or something over it sort of thing, but.
I'll have that clarified to say
But
that
just
it's
put the
concrete
pit on
pit.
there, yeah. And the other thing that I kind of thought was a little bit strange is that the law doesn't even require that it be sealed, which seems strange to me, because then you could basically get oil and stuff down into the soils. If that,
Yeah, it just seems
doesn't it
logical
seem
to
strange
seal
that
it.
doesn't have to be sealed?
yeah.
But
But-
we're gonna seal it, so it don't matter, but.
Concrete is porous, so you definitely want to
Yeah,
seal it.
but I guess the point I'm trying to make is if you read that, you'd think they were talking about the concrete floor, and we're
and
not.
that's
I'll
what
add
I
the pit in there.
That's what I thought it was too.
Yeah. And for the entire floor, $2,000, I think would be a reasonable amount, but it's not the entire floor, it was just the pit.
But we are sealing the floor anyway, if I.
Well, I
remember
assume there is a sealer on all the concrete in the entire facility.
Correct.
At least one coat, and in some area, they're putting a second coat on.
Correct.
correctly. My guess is this is a little bit more involved.
You don't want it to end up like the jail with the epoxy on
You know,
the
we
walls
could have
kinda
used
peel
that
off.
product, is what we could have used.
Peels off after
Yeah.
a couple of years.
Probably should have.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion on
Mr.
these
Chair, I'll
minutes?
make a motion to approve
I'll second
the
that.
recommendations.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, as well as the minutes.
Yes.
By Potter, second by Delight. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Set committee of the whole meeting.
Yeah, the third item, it requests setting a transportation committee of the whole to discuss a couple transportation items. Number one, discuss the road tour that we had yesterday and discuss finalizing our 5-year plan. The second item, we've had a request from the city of Buffalo regarding a retaining wall along Highway 35. Then if there's any other items the board wishes to talk about, we could add that too.
May 23rd at 1:15.
Health and Human Service, 1:30.
Yeah, that's not gonna, 23rd's not gonna work. 24th, how about that? That looks good for me. Other folks? No?
I have planning and zoning at 1 o'clock.
On the 24th, can you meet out the highway building? How long do you think, is an hour more than enough, or not more than enough?
I think with just these two items, we could get through in about an hour.
We could do 11 a.m. on the 24th at the highway garage.
Okay.
Everybody agree to that? Yeah. And it can only be these two items because we're not gonna have time to meet before then to add anything else,
Right.
so nothing's gonna get added. When we put them out about 6 weeks is when you always get things added, so. Is there a motion to
Mr.
set the
Chair,
meeting
I'll
at the
make a
24th?
motion to set Tuesday, May 24th at 11 o'clock for the Transportation Committee meeting of the whole to discuss the two items here, the road tour, the 5-year plan, and the retaining wall on County Road 35.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Potter, second by Houston. Any further discussion? So you're gonna be presenting us a new 5-year plan then that you're,
Correct.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Virgil.
Thank you.
Sean Riley, Planning and Zoning Administrator. Mr. Solar.
Just so we're-
I'm surprised he doesn't wear sunglasses every time he comes in here.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, County Board. last week's meeting, you passed a resolution on the solar farm moratorium and instructed staff to get working on a work group for the issue. Volunteers are listed on this list I put in front of you. We were kind of maybe shooting from the hip last week on saying to do in a week, because some of the questions I have are, how many members will be on this board? When will we be meeting? How many times will we meet? So my recommendation is to take this initial list, and maybe we kick around some framework, number of members. Do we want 2 county board members? Maybe reach out to an additional planning commission member. You'll see that we have some township people, a handful of private solar developers. Do we want a couple slots for each?
Sean, I would think you'd almost just want to have the entire planning and zoning commission. I don't.
Okay.
Oh, I don't think we need that, Charlie. I think, one, it just, people don't get an opportunity to speak if there's too many, and 2, then it just becomes too challenging with schedules as well, but.
And it will be going back to the planning commission or Commissioner Burrell. Work groups are
Yeah, that's
usually
true.
try to work through some of the big public input issues, developer issues, township issues, and not necessarily make a new ordinance, because that needs to go back to the planning commission for action anyhow. And then obviously if the county board just lifted it for some reason, if for some reason we don't have changes, then that would be up to the county board.
I guess, yeah, I think all's too many, but I think we want to reach out to, like, I assume you want to be on it, Charlie?
Yeah.
So if we had Charlie, I think we'd want to have at least one other, offer it up to one other planning commission member, and then I think we should have at least one other commissioner on there. All the names on here I think are good. I appreciate people stepping forward. A concern I have, and I don't know how this board isn't going to need to decide this, but we have 5 solar folks on here, and depending on how we do this, that may or may not be. I guess if this committee is going to take a vote at the end, and you have 5 from the industry.
So 4 private developers and then 1 from Wright Hennepin.
I guess I'd be concerned about, then, if you have a 7-6 vote or something like that, and 5 are from the industry.
Well, you could set it up so that the voting members are the residents or, the county board members and the planning members and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And just have these, these are the experts, so get their input for a lot
You
of stuff.
definitely need them on there, but Pat, I don't, the decision's gonna get made by planning and zoning and the county board. These guys can just maybe put forth the concerns and the areas that we need to look at.
No, I like I say, and I appreciate all their input. I just don't, depending on how this is going to work, if it's going to be like a vote at the end and you got a 7-6 vote and 5 of them, in the 7 are from the industry, and then that becomes the recommendation, goes to the planning commission, then you've kind of got a problem right off the bat.
And I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the whole idea will be on a consensus basis on this one.
Okay.
That's the whole idea.
I don't know if it even needs to have a vote. It's just,
No.
these are the concerns that need to get.
No,
put
that's
forward.
fine, then. Like I said, that's why we need to talk about structure as well, then,
Well,
so.
and you have to have the industry people, because you'll have somebody, say,
I
put
agree,
them all in the
Charlie.
gravel
I-
pits.
I-
Well, then they're 6 miles away from a substation, and the industrial people will tell you it's gotta be within a mile of a substation or very, very close to that.
I agree, we want the industry people. All I'm saying, if there's gonna be votes handed out,
No,
I think we have to limit
I don't
the
even know if
people
you
in each
need,
category.
I don't know if you even need to vote. I think it's just gonna be kind of an educational thing, the way I see it.
My recommendation might be slots. You've already said 2 commissioners. Right, just numbers. 1 planning commission member. I don't know, maybe you want to say 2 town board members, 2 developers, 2 private residents. I don't know.
Well, I think we've got if folks are okay with the 5 industry people on here, I think we've got a good mix right now. If you add the
Got
2
5 and
commissioners
5.
and the,
Just what you feel comfortable
You
with.
want 1 planning and zoning, or you want 2 planning and zoning?
well, Charlie makes 2.
Well, I would be with the county board and then somebody, I'd like to have as many planning and zoning people on it as you could get, because they're, being.
Well, I don't know, if you want to find 2 separate from Charlie, then that's fine too with me, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think he counts.
I don't count for that.
Has anybody on the planning commission expressed an interest to you, Sean?
I have not formally reached out yet. I'm looking for a little more guidance. so I can do that.
They weren't, there was nobody from planning and zoning at the meeting last Tuesday, so they're not even aware of it.
Yeah, I think we should have two people from the planning and zoning, since they're the ones that originally.
It can be tough for
drafted the
them.
ordinance and
Yeah.
stuff.
It can be tough for them to schedule, but I probably could get two.
If we have to meet in the evening, we meet in the evening.
Well, and I think that,
Were you gonna be on it then, Mark?
Oh, I didn't mean that.
Oh, I thought you said,
You
Yeah,
said
I
we.
said we, but I meant,
Well, with this big of a group,
no, if somebody else wants to go on, please. I have plenty of things.
I'd be happy to go on it, but Chris, if you want to be on it, I'd give it to you if you wanted it. But otherwise, I'd be happy to go on
Yeah,
it too.
depends, I mean,
Scheduling.
yeah, that's the only challenge.
Our, what do we want to tell the group when it's going to be? I mean, do we want to kind of decide here right now that it's going
that'd
to
be
be?
helpful, because I think if you have people that, I mean, if you say the day, there's gonna be some people that can't make night. If you say night, you're gonna have some people that can't say day. My input is, because we have staff and township people and commissioners, you shoot for the daytime, but
What about 3 in the morning?
that works. Sun will be set. Yeah.
And well, first, before we figure out the days and times, are we looking at like twice a month here for 5 months, and then or for twice a month for 4 months, and then shoot this thing over to the planning commission, or what are we looking at?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out here.
Well, I mean, is that reasonable? Twice a month for,
That
Well,
might
I
be,
don't know.
Seems like
For
it's
4
a lot-
months?
That seems like a lot of meetings.
yeah, that's maybe a long time frame and
I would think you'd want
Quantity.
to try and have the group meet as often as possible to try and get this issue
more
solved.
often than every 2 weeks?
It would be entirely up to the group, I would
But
think.
I think sometimes there's gonna need to be some, I think one, you need to kind of know in advance, and then second of all, there's gonna need to be some homework done.
I'd say
from time to time.
twice a month for 2 months and see where it leads.
Yeah,
That might be better.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't want to,
twice a month for 2 months?
and if that group can figure out that they need to meet a little bit more often, or not as often, or,
Or we need to extend it a month for 2 meetings in a row, who knows?
And when would these, what would these times be?
Well, we need to
should
decide
at
on,
least should have one, but before the end of May, right?
well, we need to decide on, I guess,
Yeah, but
day or
like,
evening, and then some dates.
Is this one where you do a survey monkey with all the people here and find out when they all can meet and get together?
I could, my initial impression.
Fridays 10 AM, Mondays 10 AM?
Yeah, a lot of the people are in the industry and can make themselves available, township officials.
like, can the township officials not, you know?
Well,
I'd have to
Donnie
say prefer
Schmidt's
an
a
evening.
farmer, so he has some flexibility.
Dwayne will be able to make
So
it.
would Dwayne have flexibility? Is Dwayne a farmer?
He has a business, but he could set his own hours. Harlan.
Leander, he's able to make morning meetings, because we've seen him here a number of times.
So
He's
would
not here today, is he?
Harlan Anderson
I
would be
think for Wright
good.
Hennepin, probably a
Yeah,
daytime.
well, that's part of, most of these other guys, it's part of their job, I'm thinking,
Right,
so.
so,
I would think a day.
Marty, can you make mornings? We've always seen you here at 9 AM, so if you told me no, I was gonna ask you, what's going on? Why am I always seeing you at 9 AM? Okay,
So how about Friday, the 27th?
Can't you all decide that one?
well, I think we should decide right here and now,
Yeah.
so Sean can let people know, this
Okay.
committee's gonna
This is
meet,
when we- Okay, that makes sense.
And then they can talk about it.
fourth and second Fridays for 4 times, and after that, things are up in there where it's at.
or we could schedule the first one, and then at that
Yeah, I
meeting,
think that you
I
guys
could
could.
fill in the next
Maybe do that.
3. Would that work? That'll be our
But,
goal every
I
other
think
Friday.
so.
That'll be our goal every other Friday for 2 months.
If we did it in the morning, it could be the 23rd before Human Services we have in the afternoon. So the 23rd or the 27th,
I think they were talking Friday.
Friday one? Okay.
Now, the 27th might not be the best because that's Memorial Day
Memorial
weekend.
weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Why don't we try the 23rd? It's a Monday. If we did it in the morning, it
That's a
would
week
work.
from yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's enough notice, right?
I don't know.
well, that's before the county board meeting. Do we need another one to
Memorial.
We haven't even formalized the names of the people who are on it yet.
membership? Right. I say, how about we do that next week, and I tell them the
27th?
every other
27th
Friday.
in the morning, that's still,
They got time.
10 o'clock?
It's in the morning, it'll be done by noon.
10 o'clock?
Every other Friday starting
Yeah.
in June.
Well, let's just do the first one, and then the group can maybe set it. Fridays usually aren't good days for me, but this one I can make
It's
it.
just that we need the group first, so I would recommend we do that
But the
next
thing is,
Tuesday.
but then people are gonna wanna know on the group, when are these days
Well,
gonna
I
be,
know,
so
so
whether they can
let's-
be on there. So I
let's-
mean, are we gonna,
I'm
it
just
seems
saying,
like a
no,
lot of people don't have meetings on Fridays, you know what I mean? So, but
Yeah,
it's
that-
kind of a
I've-
day where
I've
you
got-
can have meetings
I've got
because you
two,
don't
but-
typically have them on Fridays, but.
just don't schedule it before next Tuesday is
I've
what I'm
got
saying.
Safe Communities and Workforce on Fridays, but
So
Is the
Friday at
27th
the
open for you?
27th at 10 o'clock.
Is the 27th open for you?
yeah. But it depends if I'm
Works
going to
for
be
me.
on it or
It
somebody
works
else.
for me too, but I, you know,
Yeah, if you,
Let's do the
I
first
could be the
meeting.
alternate.
you wanna be the alternate or?
I'll be the
okay.
alternate.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to have the solar group, work group meet on 10 o'clock next Friday, the 27th, not next Friday, the 27th of May.
And we'll formalize the work group next Tuesday.
Yeah, with Commissioner Burrell and Commissioner Hewsome on the board, or on that, along with Commissioner Swatsky as an alternate.
No, I'm the alternate.
Other way around.
Oh, the other way? Oh, I'm sorry. So Commissioner Swatsky and Commissioner Burrell with Commissioner Hewsome as an alternate.
I'll second that.
Okay, and then, so you're gonna come back with 2 more planning commission members next week, and we will formalize
I will survey this list about that
See who
day and
can, well-
time. I will get 2 planning commission members, and we'll do the work group next Friday, or next Tuesday. Assuming we can do this on that date, we'll set the next
yeah,
meetings.
let them know that the first meeting's on Friday, the
Right.
27th, and that maybe Fridays is a likely day for these meetings. I mean, if we go into that group and try to look at everybody's schedule and pick a
Well,
day, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
No, it's just,
I mean, you think you're better off just telling them a day, quite honestly, unless we get like 7 people telling us it's Fridays ain't gonna work.
So if the group is big, then that'll work. If we don't have some attendance, we'll have enough people.
Fridays work for you, Gordy? Steve? Okay, and I don't know if there's anybody else in the room that's on the list or
Evan's
not.
back there.
Does it work for you? Fridays look like a pretty good day then. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Done.
Thanks, Sean. Update on ditch 31.
Thank you, Commissioner. I met with Soil and Water regarding the culvert on
Fillmore.
regarding ditch 31, that's in dire need of being replaced. Because this is a DNR protected wetland, there really isn't a whole lot we can do without causing all sorts of issues. One of the suggestions and recommendations that we kind of talked about was actually performing a cost-benefit analysis. And what we would do is we can hire a company to come in that does remediation, look at it and say, okay, if we lower this 2 feet or at the same elevation as what's on County Road 30? County 30?
30.
County Road 30. What will the farmers actually benefit? You know, how many acres would they get back? And what will they be able to do with those acres? And actually, I thought it was probably a good idea. And that way we know, all right, if we're going to have to buy credits or end up in court on this deal, what is the real benefit for those farmers? Because if we have to buy credits and they're, you know, let's say it's $30,000, if they're only going to receive an acre or 2, well, it really doesn't make any sense. But there's a company there's our number of companies that we can actually hire to do this. And it shouldn't be all that expensive. And I left my notes in the other vehicle. But I have some names of some companies. I can get some cost estimates if the board wants to go forward doing that.
Well, and if there's credits paid for those, I assume that the benefited property owners have to pay for those credits.
Yeah. So that's why a
By law,
cost-benefit
you know.
analysis makes sense. But Charlie does have another idea regarding it.
Charlie?
But, well, I was just gonna say, we have some of the neighbors and farmers that came in today too, because what I heard at the meeting, you know, that it was like, well, it hasn't changed since 1950 and this and that, so some of the people here might have some anecdotal evidence that might not be.
Well, yeah, if there's photographs, that'd be great, but everything that we looked at showed it pretty much almost identical, other than the one lake.
That was looking at what, old photos you looked
Old
at?
photos.
And you seen them yourself?
Yeah.
And it didn't change after the
Not
culvert?
on
or-
those photos, but again, you gotta remember that those are all done in the spring, you know, pretty much very, you know, the same time, so it's gonna be wet at that time, but, you know, that's all the information I have. If you guys have additional photographs, you know, then we can utilize that, but I don't have access to any of that stuff. Everything that I've looked at shows it's pretty much the same, other than, what is that lake? It's not Ruckles, it's a swamp part. Louser Lake. Now we've seen some variations in it.
Did, Pat is.
But again, it's been way too
Yeah, we
long.
can, let whoever speak would like to speak and just come to the podium and give your name for the minute taker. And if you want to show something on the overhead, we've got the ability to turn that device on next to you there too, so.
Well, thank you for the time. Yeah, I'll go first. Obviously, there's several of us here in regards to this issue. I do have the photographs. I'm not sure if anybody else brought photographs. I guess whatever way you want me to show them on the
your name-
overhead.
And your name then too, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Andy Thorson. Deers Corporation. I'm now an owner and an operator there with my wife and father-in-law Gary Deers.
Okay.
I'm a fifth generation on that farm and raising a family that'll hopefully be a sixth generation. So, would you want these up there?
Put it on
I
there.
have several, and I don't want to take too much time to
If they
to
can,
show every
show up
one
over
of
there,
them.
Go ahead. Well,
But-
you took the time to come, so we'll take the time to look at them.
Just set them right on there, it'll project
The
out.
other way.
So just, the culvert this is the culvert in question that's being talked about at this time. There's a clear need for replacement. There's been a clear need for replacement for a couple of years. It's been brought to the township's board, since it is on Township Road and it is their problem, if you will, that it needs to be replaced. And now, all of a sudden, the township has felt a real urgency to do it in a very, very short time frame. I don't believe any of us here disagree with that. The disagreement we have is the height of it, and now the township's perceived deadline to get an elevation to set this culvert at is the issue. So, in regards to the ditch, the lake, everything, currently, the ditch coming into that culvert looks like that. It was cleaned in the winter of 2015 at landowner's expense, county ditch, cleaned at landowner's expense, going into Ruckles Lake, which is a swamp. And downstream from that was cleaned several years ago, again at landowner's expense, ourselves and a couple other landowners. So we have flow coming in and out. The ditch on County Road, the culvert on County Road 30, and this is where I take issue with the perceive, I'm not saying you believe necessarily what you were told in regards to hasn't changed. What this picture is showing, and it's not easily able to be seen, but what this is showing, the culvert for County Road 30 is right at the tip of my finger. This is across the road on the south side of County Road 30, this field up here. We have tile coming down into that ditch. When that tile was installed, it was above the grade of the water in that ditch.
So
When was that installed?
That's Louser, oh.
No, this is on the south side of County Road 30. This is
Louser Lake in the back.
This is upstream or going this way is Louser's Lake. Downstream, north side of County Road 30 is going into Ruckles. We have tile installed there, like I say, that was installed above grade. I put the black arrow there. no idea where that tile is. There's no way to.
It was installed roughly,
Actually do not know.
Long time.
My father-in-law, that's before my time, talked about it, you know, in the sense that when they did it, but he didn't give me a year. It's many years ago, 30, 40 years ago. But I can't find it. No reason to find it in the sense that it is still effectively draining, but there, you know, it's higher. The other picture that I'd like to share with you, and I can share these with you after the fact, or you can take them. I don't need them. Is to show this one. So we have our property. Excuse me for my stumbling through them here. I had them all in order, but like I said, I don't want to take too much time to show all of them. There's our farm. And this water area below is a bowl, and there's tile in that. It's a tiled area. It's not, my wife's grandpa farmed it, tilled it, you know, planted corn in there. I've never seen that. But 20 years ago, I came to Minnesota, and there was never water standing in that. We always made a very nice crop of grass hay down there, and it's tiled. There's been a few times we actually put some plastic tile in there to replace some concrete tile, thinking during a dry period when the water does drain away, but it takes a long, long time to drain that away. And we get these big, large rains, and it doesn't drain away. At any rate, there is tile in that. That leads underneath County Road 30 through a field and dumps into Lausers Lake, with a ditch, and I've got a little better picture of the ditch. Right there is the, excuse me, I put a stick, real quick, I put a stick on the culvert on County Road 30, and I took the stick out. That's a 48-inch culvert going underneath County Road 30, and currently there's 43.5 inches, 43 3/4 inches of water in that culvert.
Didn't that just get cleaned?
We cleaned that again
I thought it was last year.
Yep,
that area.
but
it can't go anywhere.
they would not let us go. They would not. I'm assuming is Soil and Water,
DNR.
is a county ditch that the county has a legal obligation to maintain for the farmers, and yet they would not let us go more than 400 feet on each side of County Road 30, north and south, even though the county ditch extends farther. But either way, yes, it's clean. That's what's sad. It's cleaned on each side of it, and yet the water still can't move. And that's part of the issue that we're here for. And so that's why I showed that. But anyhow, this in regards to the tile dumps into this ditch right here. That's a flag marking the end of it, and there's a little steel post right here, so we know where that tile is. That ditch goes out into Lausers Lake, and taking that same wood stick and measuring, again, when that tile was installed, not only was it installed above the grade of Lausers Lake, but the water ran down to Lausers Lake, and I measured, currently the top of our tile dumping there is 12 and a half, 12 and a quarter inches. The top of the tile is 12 and a quarter inches below the water level. The bottom of the tile is 19 inches below the water level in that ditch. And I have cleaned the end of the ditch out as recently as last summer, as far as I could reasonably go. It's so wet out there that I can't do a whole lot, but I have cleaned it. So at any rate, we're here today in regards to the culvert on Fillmore because of the pressing issue with replacement. And we feel that the ditch inspector, who I see is here, has determined some elevations that would be proper. The DNR obviously has their opinion, Soil and Water has their opinion, and us as farmers have our opinion. Go ahead.
Oh, Andy, I don't want to interrupt you, but when you were showing that pond right now with your farm in the background,
Yeah.
That's really being determined by the level in Louser Lake. If Louser Lake would go down, that would drain right out.
That would, you know,
Because I
here's a
know
different
that's-
picture. Standing in our yard, you can see it, and then Louser's Lake is over here in County Road 30. Yeah, it's hurting.
And I said, I've lived there my whole life. That was always, I never saw it in crop, but I saw it in hay. Right now, if it drains down, all the grass has died off
It's
because it's
dead.
underwater for so long. But I remember that being hayed basically all my life.
Yeah.
You know.
We, yeah, you know, you had mentioned that, the cost analysis, and I don't know what the others here on this subject would think. You know, we're not gonna plant corn down here. If we lower the culvert on Fillmore 2 feet and
It's gonna be-
Louser's Lake, you know, Ruckles is gonna go down some. It's a swamp. There's really no standing water out there, but we're not gonna plant corn out here. We're not gonna gain tillable acres. None of us, I don't think, here are. Our issue is maintaining and having the drainage that we have installed in the current acres we do farm, so that drainage is working to the best of its capabilities, like it did, you know, years and years ago.
And then if you want to explain, sorry, Mark, if you want to explain to the board too, a tile comes out above, that's above the water level, flows much better than when you put it down into the water. It's almost like it hits
It's
a
resistance.
roadblock.
Water
So
is
it will-
obviously tremendous resistance.
Right, so it will drain, but it will just take way
takes
longer.
longer,
So you're going to have tile that's not working good, that's going to be wet for longer,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah, you know, I've talked to Charlie, obviously, at great length about this, and went to the township meeting last week. Many of us did here in regards to this, and like I say, the township wants to move pretty quick on this.
So what is their official position of the township right now? I mean,
Well,
what's their deadline? What are they, you know, what are,
Charlie maybe
They'll
leaves there
they'll do
too.
whatever they're told to do by
what's their
us.
deadline? I mean, if they don't hear by us, what day are they gonna go out
They
there and do
didn't
that?
put it in their letter, but-
Surprisingly,
Yeah.
I expected at last Monday's, a week ago Monday's meeting, a deadline to be enforced, or set, I should say, to be enforced, because at the prior meeting, they had indicated that they were going to send through their attorney a letter to the county, which
they
I do
have.
believe you have gotten now. And at that point, they were gonna give the county 30 days. That letter didn't get sent quite as quick as it was going to apparently, and by the time it goes through the attorney and whatnot. So I expected at last Monday's meeting then to have a date. There was not a date set. I do believe that the fact that many of us went to that meeting, maybe they felt a little bit pressured, if you will, to not be rock hard on a date, but they also said, this culvert, realistically, it's in such poor condition, it could
fail.
wash out at any point.
And it could fail.
And then it's
It
gonna
could
have, you know,
collapse.
then it's gonna get replaced, obviously, very quickly. They're gonna do something. They've been basically told and made well aware by other residents of the problem. So if there was something to happen, they'd be on the hook for the litigation that way, resulting to anything that would happen. You know, the one resident brought up the fact his kids go over it twice a day on a school bus. And, you know, the township certainly doesn't want that exposure out there. So I know they want to move on it, but they don't have a hard date they want direction from the county.
I wonder if they've ordered the culvert yet.
What's that?
But I wonder if they've even ordered the culvert yet, so that it's.
I don't believe they have.
So the same size as the one that's in there now they ordered?
No, they talked about wanting to go to 40, it's a 42,
Yeah, I think they're going to 40.
and they want to go to a 48.
Standard size.
So it matches the.
Does that thing ever run at full capacity?
No.
Not,
It's too high.
Because, I mean, that would be the next thing they'll say that made it bigger in size.
So just to
then,
refresh
you know.
my memory, this is the culvert that was, when it was replaced
But-
before, it was
if it-
replaced like 2 feet too high or something like that?
obviously, I'm not, you know, I'm not from Minnesota, so I've been here since the mid-nineties. What I'm told, and others can speak to this, originally, this was a bridge. And originally, this was a bridge, whatever type of little bridge structure.
There's no
And
bottom.
at some point in the seventies, the bridge failed. They rolled the culvert into the bottom of the, wherever the, the ditch had filled to at that point, filled her up.
Yeah, see, that's the problem, is that happened. Nobody has any particular dates, there's no history, and it was never an issue back then. I mean, it should have been,
No,
at that point,
but here's
And
where I
that,
take,
that depth would have been lower than the upstream culvert, correct? Do we know that pretty much for a fact?
Well, originally, there was no bottom. It was
No, I
a
know,
bridge.
but there was a bottom. I mean, there was a
But
creek bottom.
But yeah, but the ditch at
bottom.
that time, when they put it in, was silted in. I mean, like
I
Andy
know,
said,
but
they
what
just-
was, but naturally, when they built the road with a bridge and everything, the height of the bottom of that creek,
Well, it would have been
or
below-
ditch would have been, or is it almost certain to say below the
County
culvert
Road-
above?
Below County Road 30 culvert, for sure.
yeah,
What if we just,
well, I was just gonna say, on the downside of this culvert that we're looking to replace, currently the water comes out of that culvert and falls 12, 14 inches,
it's quite a bit of a drop.
Yep, so anyhow, long story short on this, we had cleaned it up to that point. We were basically given the go-ahead to clean it, started the process, got a long way through the process, and then all of a sudden, we were told we were doing everything wrong. Both us and then the contractor doing the work, who is also Derek Nico, who lives right there on the ditch. The soil and water come out, did all their studying, surveys, and lo and behold, found out that, oh no, I guess you didn't go too deep. They had said we went way too deep. So you ask about where's the bottom? Well, the bottom perhaps is even a little bit deeper than the downstream side currently, which would, I guess, like I say, Mike has made the measurements more than me, would indicate probably a 2-foot drop in this is perfectly acceptable and right.
what if we did this? What if we sent a letter to the Woodland Town Board, not that we have the authority to tell them what to do, but tell them that as position of Wright County, that you should place the culvert in at the same elevation as the one upstream. And that if Soil and Water and DNR have an issue with us, we go through that process. And worst case scenario is, in the end, somebody orders us to put some lip on the bottom of that thing and it's right back where it was, but at least we tried.
Well,
But if we put it in higher in the first place, we're all done.
Yeah.
Then
That's
nothing's
our
done.
concern.
I mean, arguably, there could be something where some judge or some organization orders that something get placed back in front of there to where it was before, and if it is, there's nothing we can do about it. But if we don't put it down lower in the first place, we can't ever do nothing about it.
Right.
If I may, 2 things in regards to that. And I've made this comment to Charlie with regards to the elevation. If we're gonna go lower, if you're gonna rob a bank, you might as well rob the whole bank. Meaning, you don't go in there to rob $100.
just remember, there's judges there.
Well,
I'm not so sure
I saw the
that's
law
the best
enforcement
place to
officers
I'm
do
just
that.
leave.
trying to find some compromise
Yeah, no,
right
I
off the bat that
under-
would still
I
help you, that would
understand.
still give you help.
But, and I'm not saying we get carried away with it, but I'd say if we're gonna lower it, Mike has had some good numbers that he presented at the township board meeting, which would indicate where it really should be in regards to the slope of the whole ditch is actually lower than the one currently under the County Road 30. But if they're gonna make us raise it, they're gonna make us raise it to whatever they determine. So what's the difference if we raise it 6 inches or a foot? If they make us raise it, they're gonna make us raise it to wherever they decide. And
They'll
at
make
which
us
point,
raise it to the existing, where it's at right now.
yeah,
That's where.
at which point I'm also,
Or they may accept the compromise in the end, I don't know.
at which point, I do believe it would be the benefiting landowners that would pay for that, not the county taxpayers. So asking the county board here to authorize the township to put it in at a level that the ditch inspector determines is the proper level for that culvert, and let the chips fall where they may, knowing that if there is litigation, or if there is it has to be raised, at that point, the township's gonna pay to install it. because that's their responsibility. If it needs to be raised, it's the benefiting landowners that are gonna be on the hook for it, not county taxpayers and whatever.
If you put it at the one upstream, and you kind of come in at a compromising position and put it up there, maybe, and I don't know that this will happen, I don't know it at all, but maybe DNR and Soil Water will decide, you know what, it's not worth the fight, and they just don't even notice it.
I don't think it's gonna,
You lower it too much, and you lower those ponds too much, and then I think you almost guarantee that they enter it, and then you have a battle, and maybe you win, probably you don't, maybe you do, I don't know, but that's just my theory on it. I know that we talked about doing that before as a compromising situation.
Mike, if you want to mention your name and stuff too.
I'm Mike Young, the Wright County Drainage Inspector, and this is the information that I pulled and presented to Woodland Township Board at their request. This contains the flow lines and the elevations of the culverts. The first graph here shows the culvert right here. This is the culvert in question, which is higher than the upstream one, giving a grade of 0.018. So the grade of that is running in the wrong direction. If the culvert is lowered here,
0.018 at 18 thousandths of, or what is 0.018? What is?
Yep, correct.
18 thousandths of a foot
Yes.
per,
Well, grade
foot?
can be,
18 thousandths of a,
if you look at it in the opposite,
Or-
if you look at it at the
I think
other,
it's per
1/10.
per 100 feet. I
is it
think.
per 100? 18 thousandths of a foot?
Well, it can be
100
per
or-
any measurement.
But what is it in this per measurement? The 18, the .01, the .018, it's going up 18 thousandths of a foot over what period of space?
Well, the easiest way to figure it out is where's the elevation at County Road 30 and where's the elevation at Fillmore?
Or is it
And
from
then you
one,
go
or is it
for
from one
miles.
spot to another? Is it what?
And I think that's what he's trying to get to.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
I'm
Go ahead.
confused about that.
It's right there. Well, 1002.5, 1003.4, right?
Yes.
That's
The
the-
bottom of the culvert inlet side is 1002.5 on 30. The bottom of the culvert currently on Fillmore is 1003.4. Okay? Here's the
So it's
measurement.
about-
here.
it's about a
2.5
foot.
Tenths of a foot.
2.5, 3.4,
Yep.
9/10 of a foot.
Now, these are not sea level
So
elevations.
about 11 inches, 10 and a half
They're
inches.
Relative elevations. So these are not sea level elevations. Everybody's clear on
Yep.
that, correct? Okay. Now, just past the culvert, the ditch cleaned and soil borings done to establish where the ditch is, it's at, the ditch bottom is at 1001.8. That's where the ditch bottom is.
And that's
just-
downstream of County Road 30.
No,
That
Or
is-
of the township road, I
Of
mean.
the
of
township road, correct. That is just
Downstream
beyond
of
the
the
culvert,
township road in question with the culvert needs to be
right
replaced.
at the edge of the
Okay.
culvert.
And that is what is it again?
1001.8.
1001.8, and what is the culvert?
And the culvert is 1003.4.
Okay.
Okay? So what I did was I took the grade between County Road 30 and the next crossing at County Road 8, between these 2 points, and I divided it to come up with fairly equal grades. And that was the compromise that I made, which is still significantly higher than the ditch bottom, but it divides that grade and lets the whole thing run at the proper grade.
And what is that for the culvert then?
That puts the culvert at 1001.4. That is 2 feet exactly from where it is right now.
But isn't it 1001.8 downstream from that?
That's the bottom of the ditch.
That's the bottom of the ditch.
So then it would
still
actually
wouldn't
be
be that
running up a
low.
little bit again. It'd be why wouldn't you want to be above that 1001.8 number?
Hold on, let me get my,
Because water, you know, you'd want to be above the 1,001.8, right? Because 1,001.8 is downstream of the township road in question.
I'm sorry, this was the flow line, not the ditch bottom. That was the flow line.
Oh, what's the ditch bottom?
Well, the ditch bottom, it's difficult to say. It was
Okay.
recently
Okay,
cleaned.
maybe I misunderstood you, but I thought you said the ditch bottom.
Yep, and I did say the ditch bottom, and I apologize for that. That was the flow line of the water, was 1,001.8, just beyond the culvert. So what I tried to do was just match this grade, and I figured that was the compromise. We have grade from an established culvert to an established culvert. The one in the middle is in question. Let's lower that so the grade is equal all the way through that area.
Common
And
sense.
that seemed very common sense to me.
And how can they argue with that?
Well, if you ask their opinion, they are going to give you an opinion. Do they have the jurisdiction to tell you, as a drainage authority, what you can do? That's the million-dollar question, and I'm not an attorney. They will give you opinions. I have a letter that I sent to the board a while back that talked about the fact that they like to recommend studies to delay things, and I believe that's what they're doing here.
So what you're looking at
We
is
don't really
to set
have
the
time
new
to-
culvert at 1,001.4.
Correct. In order to keep this grade
And it's currently at
consistent.
1,003.4
Yep, it is 2 feet.
feet. And that would put it back where it was when the bridge washed out, pretty much where it was. meant
Well,
to
we don't
be.
have that exact
Oh,
elevation.
it's close. It's
Yep.
close.
To me, that's a compromise.
Yeah.
At this point, we don't know where the ditch originated. The ditch, I actually have a map here from 1940. The ditch went all the way through Ruckles Lake.
Right.
We're never gonna probably get permission or the blessing to clean the ditch through Ruckles Lake.
No, we can allow to go back 25 years. The problem is, some of the notes, Janice, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was something from 91 when Kerry was saying that it needed to be cleaned and never happened. And then there was another time when Jack Russick walked it and said it needed to be cleaned, and I can't remember what year that was. But said it needed to be cleaned after the water level went down, and then nothing happened again. So those are the only two historical documents I could find.
If I could, Board, I'd like to just mention quickly the tile that the agricultural side of this equation is speaking about typically runs into a lowland at about a 10th grade. That's 1.25 inches per 100 feet. So if the tile is 12 inches under, that means that that tile is filled for several hundred feet and unable to flow. Because it's only going up at a 10th grade, 1.25 inches per 100, and you've got 12 inches to make up. So even though that water's not on the surface, that system is full. And I know that I've had to mention that to a number of people. I have had meetings with Bowser, Army Corps of Engineers, Soil and Water, DNR, concerning this. And they do have recommendations, but the authority is still here.
Mr. Chair, in order to speed this up a little bit, is this a case where we need to go on the recommendation of our ditch inspector and request that the township set this new culvert at the elevation of 1,001.4?
You could do that, Mr., you could do that.
I'll make that motion to have.
Excuse me, sir, I would not use that number. It's not a sea level elevation.
Okay, give me a number that.
Relative to the one at 30
Relative to
then.
what you need
Yes,
with
if
that.
you say,
2 feet lower than the current one.
2
Yes.
feet lower than the, okay, then we'll just go with the 2 feet lower than the current. And that is a motion, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Okay, so just so I understand again, because we're not the ones setting it, so what you're making a motion is to send a letter to Woodland Township, indicating them that the Wright County Board, by virtue of their authority as drainage authority,
And recommendation of our ditch inspector.
and with counsel of our ditch inspector, advise you to, if you're going to replace the ditch or this culvert, as we understand you are, to place it at 2 feet lower than its current elevation.
Correct.
And that our ditch inspector would help them set the elevation, you know? Because they don't have the instruments to, you know.
Why,
once
do they do
take-
that with their own people
Once-
out there? or
Once
do
they take it out, it might be hard to find out where 2 feet was from.
Well, that's fine if Mike does that. I mean, I'm assuming
He did it with the one on Phil,
the townships,
Dempsey.
do they put this culvert in themselves or they contract it out?
They contracted out, they actually have a bid to have it done already.
Well, those people that are coming out there must be able to know how to run survey equipment.
But Mike would help him.
Oh, that's fine too, if they need Mike. I mean, if they need Mike, he's available, but. Mr. Craig Kreiser, do you have any comment for us on this motion? Okay. You are a wise man. Does the judges want to form a panel and decide give us advice? Okay. Any further discussion up here?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner DeLiden.
a friendly amendment, I'd like to have it set up right away so that we can put in some weirs or something to lock it in so that if we get a court order saying we got to do something, that we're not having to spend a number of dollars again right away to try and modify this thing to be able to close it off so that, you know, because I'm afraid we're going to end up in court on this one.
Well, we might, yeah.
But I would rather,
I'm with you on this.
you know, just so that it's done so we don't have to pay
Take the
another
culvert.
time.
So you're talking about the ends of it have something that.
Well, just the inlet side.
The inlet side to have a control structure, and Mike wanted to say something about that.
Okay, well,
I did speak to the county maintenance person. Commissioner Burrell had directed me to look into exactly what you're talking about, Commissioner DeLiden. Asked me to look into the cost of placing the initial stuff in place in case this question did come up. Because I wasn't familiar with the type of tube that they used, I referred that to Al, the maintenance person, and he was going to call the company that they use, because each one is a little bit different, and get a price on an actual,
Control structure.
the band on just the beginning of it, the band on part of it. He has not gotten back to me yet.
That,
Okay.
I
so
think we
does
need
the
to
motion
do
maker
that.
and second accept that?
I would, Mike,
Motion
are you
maker?
okay with that? What? To have a control structure put in?
If needed,
Well, I would
No,
just
just
say, you
to-
want
to
to put it in
provide
right
for
away,
it?
I think.
provide for it.
But there's another benefit that could work with this, and I think doing this, there's room for compromise down the road too, because let's say fall time comes, you could take some of the structure down, drain the water down a little bit, and then put the structure back in, so when you have the spring melt, it would actually provide some flood control. So now these would be able to fill up and then, you know, let it out. You're able to control
If I may, I would ask that if a control structure ability is put in, that it is put in with the hope and intention of never being used. Not so much where, well, we're gonna put it in right away and, you know, maybe they'll let us take it out.
Well, I mean, it's a
Well, if-
double-edged
if
sword.
Based on the motion that was made, and with the work done by the ditch inspector, you know, if you put that in there as a possibility to do down the road, but I'm asking that not be, basically that not really be.
And then see how it affects out there too, because I don't think it's gonna change it might bring the level down a little bit.
There
but-
isn't gonna be a tidal wave of water coming down.
Mr. Chair, I'm not overly thrilled with that.
You don't want it, okay, so it's not going to be added to the motion, okay, as a friendly amendment. I guess, I think the lower we lower it, the greater chance the DNR and soil and water come back and make an issue, and that's why I think 102, or 1025 is better. because I think maybe they just walk away and they leave it be. And that's why I'm concerned about going 2 feet lower, is I think the lower it goes, I just think the greater chance it is they challenge us. And the less we go, I think the lesser chance they challenge us. That's my thought process on it. But motion by Mike, second by Charlie. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1 with 1 abstention. Three yes, 1 no, 1 abstention, which is myself. So that letter, Lee will pen that letter?
Yep.
Do you want Lee to sign it, or do you want the board chair to sign it?
If you want to sign it, Pat, I think it'd be better.
Is that what you, okay, so that'll come, Lee, you can get that to me to sign?
The abstainer can sign it.
Yep. Well, I'm not against it, I'm not against it.
And I'm not against.
But
it.
I'm concerned of.
I just know what's
I'm
gonna
just not
happen.
sure it's the best, I'm not sure it's the best approach either, that's all, even though I'm not against it, so okay, folks, you're gonna get a letter to Woodland Township to put the culvert in at that height, and if they put it in based on that, then I guess we'll see where she goes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're down to the court's feasibility study. Judge McPherson, would you like to give us a preamble to this discussion?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and I know that all of you are very familiar with this topic, but for those who are observing the meeting here today, by way of history, the courthouse that we're currently in was built in 1959. It was the subject of a significant remodel in the early 90s at the time the government center was added. And then in the mid-2000s, when 2 new judges were added to Wright County, there was an additional courtroom that was put in a vending machine room. But what we are, the point.
No, wait, now, it was a break room, it wasn't a
break
vending
room,
machine.
okay,
It was a
sorry.
break room.
Were there vending machines in the?
Well, there were vending machines in there, but it was much more than just a vending machine room.
It's not a good courtroom.
Now,
I'll
if
just
we
state
put you
that.
back here in that area, that would be putting you in a vending machine room. Okay, we didn't do that.
It's a lot like a bowling alley, but in any event, we have some very significant space needs with regard to the courts. As you can imagine, with building the courthouse being built in 1959, technology has changed significantly, and the courts have now gone to a paperless system. So we have significant needs for technology, as well as the individuals who are coming to court want to use technology in their courtroom presentations, and we have significant difficulties there. But even more importantly to the bench, and I believe to the board as well, as we've worked together over the last couple of years here on these issues, is that our courtrooms are not accessible to individuals who have any form of need of, for instance, a wheelchair. We've had the unfortunate situation of an individual who had to be tied into their wheelchair in order to come into a courtroom. And in this day and age, that is simply unacceptable. And the last point that I'll make by way of history is, and we could talk all day about some of the deficiencies, but the other very significant deficiency we have relates to safety issues. We're having an increased number of safety concerns that happen in our courts, in large part due to the configuration and the size of the courtrooms. There are 3 courtrooms that we currently utilize on a day-to-day basis that are far, far below the standard for a standard courtroom. And when we're having security issues in those courtrooms, it is very difficult for the sheriff's office to respond to those security issues when they occur because of the tight spaces. Kathleen Gabriel was up here talking about child protection. That's one area there's been significant changes in. Just by way of an example, I had a case yesterday. There were 7 parties on that case. I was ever so grateful that 3 of them didn't show up because I only had spots for 2 of them. So, we get by, but we can't continue doing what we're doing. And so the board and the bench have been meeting, and by way of trying to figure out what is the most prudent fiscal option to proceed to address the space issues, the board and with the agreement of the bench, proceeded with a study to figure out if this current space could be remodeled and keep us here for a few more years before a new building is looked at. And the summary from the architects, Wold, is what you have before you today. So that's by way of introduction to where we got to this point for those at home.
Okay, thank you. For those on the committee, maybe members up here can answer it, but I guess I'm a bit confused, and I'm just going to read the last line of this what we got here. Although the study is 50% complete, it is believed by the core group the feasibility study has progressed to provide sufficient information to make feasibility determinations and discussions with the full Wright County Board at this time. So does this mean that Wold is going to stop their study and only charge us half the amount, and they've already got all the information we need, or what does that sentence mean?
Yes.
Are they still going to proceed and do the entire study?
No, I've asked them, we've asked them to just put a hold on it.
Put a hold on everything.
Okay.
Until the board has a chance to digest some of this. And the idea is not to make a decision today. The idea was to try and present this information so that we can talk, think, look at other options or whatever on how we want to proceed, because there's a lot of money involved in this, and I have a hard time with option number 2, saying they're going to be here another 5 years. It takes 2.5 years or 2 years to get to the point so they could be here 5 years, you know, for the $10 million. You know, and even if we could beat it up and probably get it down, you know, a few million, but I want the whole board to make the decision to what point do we want to look at option 3.
Mr. Chair, Chen Meng from Court Services, they did our space study for us, was indicating to me the size, based on our space study, we'd be looking at a $30 to $40 million courts. I pushed the number of 50 million just to be safe, because I'd rather be safe than sorry on this, and I agree with Commissioner Glidden. When you're looking at these numbers, you're really questioning whether it's good value for the taxpayers to keep spending money on this when neither one of these options are going to give you that much time. And I know that this study was done in '04, that the commissioners before, so they knew about this issue before, and for whatever reason, economy, whatever, it stayed there. The issues have only gotten worse. And I just have a tough time spending this kind of money for a Band-Aid when you could just get the solution to the problem, in my opinion, is just to build a new building and be done with it.
To me, even if we could figure out a way to do it for $10 million for 10 years, I'm not sure that's still a good use of taxpayer
Part of
money.
the other discussion came in is that
So then
if
this
we
is what we asked
remodel it
them
for
to
the
do, is
courts,
give us
exactly.
these numbers, but
Although, unfortunately, and it seemed like some of the groups, when they came in here, seemed to think that there was ways that they could figure out how to make this feasible, to do some things and stay here for a period of time. And of course, we got what I probably expected before they told us that off the bat, is that they came in and it's, you know, there's a big job over there and everybody's got their eyes on it. So, and that, I'm not surprised by these numbers. I was surprised when they told us a few months ago that they thought maybe there were some things we could do to keep us here a while longer and actually appease some of these issues.
I was hoping.
I would like to certainly see the background of what they've done, to see where what this 990,000 and this 10,270,000 and this, you know, what that entails and whatnot.
Yep,
Certainly
no,
like to
and
see that.
again, that's why.
Obviously, we don't have that here, but.
That's why we didn't want them to spend any more money until the board had an option. So if you want to have a meeting of the whole, which would probably be a good thing.
I'd like to have
I
that,
think we need to do that.
because I'd like to look at this $1,508,000 and see if that can't get us 4 or 5 years instead of just 2 years, for example, and see what's actually in that. I know people have their eyes out there, and everybody knows we're going there at some point in time, but, you know, do keep in mind that we're building a $16 million highway garage right now, and the taxpayers are going to pay for that. And the taxpayers are right now paying for a $50 million law enforcement center, and if we throw a $50 million courthouse facility on top of a $50 million law enforcement center and a $16 million highway building. Everybody's taxes are gonna go up about 15, 20% in one given year, and people don't like that. And as much as we don't like to admit it, it's the people that we work for. And if they don't like something, we need to evaluate whether or not we can not do that at this point in time. And I know people say, well, we have to have courts, and we do, and you guys do important things. And we talked about one of them here today, and Judge McPherson, you've talked about some things that don't work, and I understand that and accept that. And but we've got some constraints too. But I think you're right. We need to have that meeting and talk about things. And
I think I got good information there. Show
I'm not, again, I'd be interested in knowing what's in that $1,508,000. Is that any, and you don't have to tell me now. I'm going to find out at the meeting.
I do think it's important for the board to understand before we meet, again, that the large percentage of that 1.5 million for that short-term option is related to ADA compliance, because once you start touching any part of the building, you have to bring it up to compliance. And so we were pretty surprised at that figure, but it's because of the need for ramping and things like that. And because there's not enough space to do some of that work that needs to be done to make things compliant. There's moving of walls, and it gets very complicated very quickly.
And Judge, this is what I'm gonna put out is, if we did go ahead with a new building and started on it right away and just said, you know what, you guys just tough it out for it, well, we're gonna have this building up in a year and a half, just tough it out, you'd probably go along.
Well, I would think they'd go along with that.
Well, I will tell you that we do have some.
Because really, you're doing it now, and I know it's difficult and it's not, a good situation and stuff, but gosh, I hate to put $1.5 million in something that, that if we really do go ahead with this, and I think you guys would say, you know what, we're gonna live in the old house here while, we'll use the candles instead of the electricity, whatever, but knowing that we're gonna have a new building out here in a short
You're right,
time.
Charlie. I'm not spending $1.5 million for a year and a half. If I could spend $1.5 million for 5 years, I'd do it, because that will be, you can talk about throwing it away, but buildings deteriorate, and you look at depreciation and everything else, and that'd be a bargain.
Yep. And I will say, Commissioner, that Wold, when the committee met, did talk about the possibility of approaching the local building official in Buffalo to determine if there is a long-term plan, could we hold off on doing some of that ADA compliance work to bring that figure down significantly. And they have indicated that they have seen that happen in other counties where the building officials have been willing to do that, with the understanding that there is a commitment to the longer-term plan, and that it's just for a short period of time that those temporary fixes would be in place. And I've already had some conversations with our court administrator, because she doesn't have enough room for her staff currently in the large volume courtrooms, about could we get by with something much less expensive, and those conversations are ongoing. So we definitely agree with you that if we're going to be going to a new building, that spending $1.5 million is not a good option. And so we'd like to explore those other options as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, another thing is I hate to throw money at this remodeling temporarily and then just have to remodel it later if we are to potentially bring the other half of Health and Human Services back.
Right, it will end up costing money to tear down whatever we just put up.
And that's one of the challenges. I don't want to be doing that and then just do it again.
I just see that too much.
Because we know that what's referred to as the Pomida Building, Health and Human Service out there on Highway 25 North, is maxed out for what you can put for bodies in there. They've moved the cubes around enough that there's no room left to do anything out there. And it is kind of a maintenance nightmare as far as buildings go, and it's kind of getting towards the end of its useful life for what it was built for.
Pomida?
Pomida.
I think it's a pretty efficient building. A lot of work gets done out there every day, and it.
Well, I'm not saying that, but the size-wise, we got constraints there. We also have.
I think it'd be a mistake if when we do move courts out there, just automatically move all those people back into here and have a full building again, and then right away, as soon as there's growth, to kind of wonder where we're going to put folks,
Correct. Well, those are things I got to talk about, but that's,
Because
There are
then
still some
you're
challenges.
literally just, a few years down the road, you're kind of back in the same position because, then everybody's back here and this building's full and then you don't have room either, so.
You definitely need to do a good study before you do.
A study
Yeah.
on that one, yeah, but and then that ties in with the existing jail here, what do you do with it? There's a lot of questions that are unanswered there. I hate to start spending money on something that's not gonna be a long-term solution here.
Because I think, the history has shown here that having financial services in a different building than the social services and the public health has not been a problem. It's
It's
just.
it's not ideal.
Not ideal, but it does
I would
work.
say that it has been a problem. We just, we
And-
don't
and-
hear about it that much.
Well, I don't know, can you give me any specific issues that,
Oh,
have come
I've
relative to?
had lots of people tell me that they've gone here only to know that they had to go out to Pomida, or they've gone out to Pomida and they've been told to come here. We just don't hear about it, but it happens quite a bit.
Well, that's a major tragedy, if that would happen, but they had to drive a mile over here, then the next time they knew where to go because it happened to them one time,
It's
so.
not so bad in the summertime, but in the winter.
What's gonna happen if somebody comes here for court, then they gotta drive 3 miles out there? We might have to shut the county down.
Okay, Mr. Chair, to move this forward, should we try to look at a date for a committee of the whole, to talk with Wold and get the numbers and
Yep.
information that you're looking for?
Yeah, let's do that.
Move this
And
forward?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, members of the board, we do have a full bench meeting that's scheduled for June 7th in the afternoon, where there is no court, and I know my bench is going to want to participate in that meeting in terms of getting the information at the same time, so that they understand it as well.
I absolutely can't make that day, and I
Okay.
really wanna be there.
That, I want you there.
I'll be
So
in DC that day.
we will defer to the board then, and we will make arrangements to get as many judges there as we can.
Oh, Mr. Chair, maybe one idea I'll throw out is we have had this standing meeting of the core group that's met every other Tuesday, 3 in the afternoon. The next meeting of that would be on the 24th, if that would work for
What time do they meet?
3 o'clock.
3 p.m. If that would work for a large number of the group, both on the bench side and with the commissioners and staff.
And I
In the
have
afternoon?
site inspection at 1 o'clock, but I think we'd be back by 3. So that would work for me.
What do you have at 1?
Site inspection, so, but I think it's only about 3 places. I said I'd be back by then. So then we'll have board meeting, a highway transportation
Trying to
meeting,
the whole at 11 o'clock.
11.
right, a site inspection for me, and then the courts. I want to raise.
Does that work,
Make sure we're good shoes.
does that work for you, Commissioner
That work for the
Slotski?
court?
That works for me.
It does.
Does.
And Commissioner Houston?
Yes, it'll work for me.
So 3 o'clock.
So cancel everything for the rest of the judges.
Well, we're not going to do that, but we'll get as many there as we can.
So, Mr. Chair, with that, I'd make a motion to set the committee of the whole, reference to the courts and the Wold study for May 24th, next Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And do we want to be in the boardroom, or do we want to be in, was it C-118 or whatever it's called?
We have C-118 as a standing meeting, but if we're going to have a larger number, perhaps move down here.
Don't matter to me. Where do you think it'll work best, Lee? What room is the best equipped to have that meeting?
I think C-118 might be easier to read. If we do it here, we're gonna all have to be down here.
C-118,
Okay.
To be able to see better.
okay.
Plan for 118.
We'll go for 118 unless for some reason we
If
can't
there's too
have it.
big,
then
if
we'll-
there's too many people, we could come over here too.
And I will second that motion.
Well, 118, there shouldn't be too many people. That room's.
No.
Got some room.
Let's do 118 then.
Okay, motion by Mike, second by Chris. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
So then we'll, Mr. Chair, we'll have Wold try to get that information that you're seeking for that meeting?
Well, Wold's gonna be at the meeting?
Yeah.
So I assume they're gonna present on, what adds up to be $20 million, what adds up to be 13
Okay.
million, what adds up to be $1.5 million.
Lee, if you could just make sure they're alerted to what their concerns, questions, just to make sure they come prepared, so
Well, I think the drawings that they've been providing us
I
and,
want to make sure that he gets all the questions answered and that they have all the material that they need to answer all these questions, so we're not just, okay, 2 weeks later, we'll get the other answer.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I think it would be helpful for you to see the preliminary drawings that they made that go along with those figures.
Absolutely.
Because it is fairly extensive
Oh, yeah.
in terms of the challenges that they're trying to solve here. But we were actually pleasantly surprised when we saw the drawing. It was when we got the price tag that we were a little unhappy, because when we got the drawings, we were like, hey, maybe we can make this work. But the costs that go along with that, especially the putting the roof on the outdoor rec yard by itself, is $3 to $4 million. So that's where you get those significant numbers.
Thank you all for attending.
thank you.
I'm sorry if we kept you longer than you probably anticipated being here.
That's all right. Thank you very much.
Oh, I just wanted to mention, Judge, I like your flashlight.
This is Commissioner Delayden's gracious solution to our lack of emergency lighting in some of the courtrooms. So I now know exactly where it is at any time.
I was trying to save us money. I figured if we're going to.
It doesn't have a shameless advertisement on it, does it?
Not in my business.
Okay.
Not of
Okay.
his. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just figured we could save some money by not having emergency lighting.
Judge, he could have just put one of the apps on your cell phone. That would.
Moving on.
Okay. Our advisory committees and advisory board updates. Charlie, we'll start on your side.
I'm gonna pass.
I'll pass.
I feel like I have something here, I know.
SEDS.
SEDS.
You had a lot of good information at that meeting.
Oh, boy, SEDS.
So,
Let's see here, let me look back here and see if it's first. I'm gonna go chronologically though, in case there was something before that that really that I really need to chat about here today. Personnel, ways and means we talked about. Nope, SEDS. So anyhow, we had a SEDS meeting last week over at the Monticello site. Boy, we had all these folks from Benton there and all these folks from Sherburne, and I thought I was gonna be an island from Wright County, and finally Mike showed up and joined me, but had a pretty good meeting.
What is SEDS again?
Nobody from Stearns showed up, at least nobody from, Stearns County government. No commissioners or administration there. But I think they literally had like the full board for
Sherburne was there.
Sherburne and maybe Benton as well, but
Yes.
I have this nice little Minnesota Association of Development Organizations handout here, and I'll pass this down. And I think if a person only brings back one thing from here to kind of explain what other places do and who's doing what, this is probably it, and I'll pass it back and forth. But just Regional Development Commission is what they're talking about here. There are 9 regional development commissions in Minnesota covering 63 counties. So just to kind of let you know that every place doesn't have one. But kind of like the Met Council, they don't have a regional development council. I don't know, I guess they got the Met Council and other stuff, there's the 7-county metro area, 7 of the counties that don't have them. There's us, Benton, Sherburne, Stearns don't have one, and then in the southeast, there's, I think, 11 counties down there, 11 that don't have one as well, but I'll pass this map back and forth. So 63 counties do. We're one of 4 that don't. We used to have one. Region 7W, they disbanded it in 1982. I don't know why, but I do remember when I got on the board in 1991, there was kind of always negative talk about Region 7W, and nobody seems to remember what it was that everybody was unhappy about, but they quit it in 82. But these RDCs were established in Minnesota statute in 69 to provide technical assistance to the local units of government in their region. RDCs perform a variety of unique services based on the needs of their region. RDCs partner with numerous state and federal agencies, obtaining administration grants for programs and projects at the local level. RDCs are governed by the volunteer board of directors composed of elected officials and business and community leaders. I don't know, it suggests here that RDCs are recognized for their fiscal responsibility and capabilities in professional management. But anyhow, so we don't have an RDC. What are some of the things they do?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Not that.
Hey, this is coming at us real soon here, I'm just letting you know.
Well, I know, but the other issue is that at 10:30, There was a building committee meeting in the back, and there's a bunch of employees
Okay.
sitting back there waiting for us. And I just, not that I don't find this interesting or.
Well,
important,
it's timely, because I think it might even be on next, do you want to, okay, we'll skip it. We were at a meeting, there was a lot of information, and people are going to ask us to join one real soon, I'm just going to tell you that, so.
And Commissioner Swatsky had
You
a
want to pass
lot
it
of good
around,
questions.
so we can look.
Well, I
at it.
didn't think you had time to look at it.
Well, if you're gonna keep talking, I can read while you're talking.
Well, okay, like I
There's
say.
two more commissioners I gotta go through.
But anyhow, people are asking us to join, and this is something that's gonna be coming quickly, and, this board's gonna need to decide whether or not they wanna join, and, I think one thing I'll say is relative to possibly joining. There's a proposal being offered to us by the Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services.
And innovation.
To do this. And I know the 4 counties have not done this, and they've scratched their head about whether or not there's value in doing it. I think if Central Minnesota does it, I think it's probably our best opportunity to do it and be efficient, because they can house it within their organization and limit the bureaucracy. Nobody has to rent an office. Nobody has to hire secretaries, those sorts, office equipment, all that sort of stuff. It would just be the one person they'd add to their staff. And they're basically asking the organizations, and I'm debriefing this down now, they're asking for seed money from the counties, from the 4 counties for 2 years, and then partial third year, and after that, they would just take it on and fund it, is what they're saying, so. But you'll hear more about that later when the official requests come before us. Mike?
Okay, Mr. Chair, my brief, I-94, we met last Thursday, discussed legislative updates and that. The legislature are going to punt again on transportation issues. They're too far apart, anything. And as of today, a group of I-94 ones were out in Washington, D.C., meet with legislators for a few days and come back. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Chris?
Okay, I attended the foster care banquet for foster care providers last Friday or Thursday night, was it? And talked to some folks, and they're doing a great job, so we owe them a lot of thanks for both adult and child foster care. Safe Communities of Wright County, we've got, the United Way gave us a grant for $20,000. It's the largest one they've actually ever given, and so that'll be for the distracted driving campaign. They had a couple of mock crashes in St. Michael and Maple Lake that just, I guess, were very well done and very impactful. And a little engineering history, there's 32,000 people killed in crashes annually, but that's actually down from 55,000 in the 1970s. So, and the 95% reason, or the reason 95% of the time for crashes is driver error. And Clearwater River Water.
Does driver error include inattentiveness then? And, yeah,
Mhm.
great, okay, yeah.
Yep. And, I mean, yeah, just things happen.
Causes driver error. I guess.
Clearwater River, they had a public meeting regarding the Hidden River and Clearwater Harbor. They need to upgrade their septic system, and so that was state standards, actually. They need to upgrade it because they need to have less than 10 milligrams of nitrogen per liter is what the state standard is. So anyway, there was a public meeting about that, and more information to come. And some other things are going on in there, but we're short on time, so that's all I will.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? There being no further business, we're adjourned at 11:18 a.m.